AI agents are becoming one of the most powerful tools in automation, but most people don't realize just how simple they are to build. You don't need to be a developer and you don't need to know how to code. And so in this video, I'll explain what agents are and how to build one inside of n8n. And by the end, you'll have an AI assistant that can check the weather and the latest news. It can look at your schedule and it can email you a short summary of your day each morning. All of the prompts and a download for this template can be found in my free school community, so I'll leave a link in the description. Before we start building, I'll quickly explain what an agent is, the three components that make up any AI agent, and then just a couple technical terms which will help everything make more sense. So let's start with the difference between an automation and an agent. So a normal automation runs the same fixed steps every single time. So just think from A to B to C. You have an input, you have actions in between, and then you have an output. And automations can only do exactly what you tell them to do. They cannot rethink or adjust the plan if something changes. And even when you have workflows that can take different paths, if it's still fixed, then it's still an automation. And if there's no reasoning required at this stage here, and the decision is purely based off of rules, then you wouldn't need an agent anyways, and an automation works perfectly fine. Now, an agent, on the other hand, can look at what the user asks for and it can decide what to do next based on the instructions and the tools that it's access to. So for example, we're building a personal assistant. So if we were to ask that agent, how busy am I? What is my day looking like today? It knows that before giving you a response, it needs to first look at your calendar. And so it looks at your calendar, it will check what events you've got on for the day, and then it outputs the correct response. So the key thing to remember is that automations are predefined and fixed, and agents are adaptable and able to reason through the tasks that you give them. Now, there's three components to any AI agent that gives them this adaptability. And the first is the brain. And so this is just the large language model. So think OpenAI, Claude, or Gemini. And this is responsible for all of the thinking and communication of the agent. Second is the memory. And so this allows the agent to keep track of previous instructions so that it's not starting from zero each time. Now, memory is not always required. It depends on the use case of the agent. For example, if you've built an agent that you communicate with on a chat trigger, then in that case, you would want to include memory. And then the third is tools. And so tools allow the agent to access information and take real world actions. And tools can be anything like Gmail, Google Sheets, Google Calendar, Slack, or even a simple API call. And we'll get onto what that is shortly. And so just like how a real person would need a working brain, memory, and access to tools in order to make decisions and take actions, the same is true for an AI agent. It's the exact same. And this is why they're being compared to digital employees as opposed to just normal automations. Now, for the agent to actually use these tools, it needs a way of interacting with them. And the way that apps talk to each other is through something called an API. And so similar to how you have a UI, which is a user interface, and how you as the user interacts with the application, an API is just how one application talks to another application. And the best way to describe this is you can think of an API as like a menu of information or actions that a service provides. And a HTTP request is how you choose something from that menu. And to keep things simple, you only need to know two common types of requests, and these are GET and POST. So a GET request is asking for information like the current weather or the latest news, and a POST request is sending information or creating something new. And that's really all you need to know for now. In n8n, they actually make this incredibly easy, and they include instructions for how to do this for every integration. And don't worry if any of that was confusing, it'll make more sense once we get around to building. Okay, so now that you understand the parts that make up an AI agent, n8n is the platform that we'll use to bring all of this together without writing any code. So n8n is a visual platform that allows you to build these workflows by simply dragging and connecting nodes on a canvas. And you can sign up for a 14-day free trial, so I'll leave a link in the description. And every tool is shown as a node that you connect directly into the agent. And n8n includes many built-in integrations, so there's a long list here of applications that you connect to. But if a service that you want to connect to is not included on this list, then you can still connect to it using what's called a HTTP request node. And as you can see, I've actually got one here, so you'll see how I set that up. Now, every workflow starts with a trigger. So in this case, we've got a schedule trigger, meaning that this automation will run at the same time each day. And the main part of this workflow is the AI agent node. And so here's where you connect the chat model, the memory, and the tools. So the workflow that we're creating is a really simple personal assistant. So we'll give it tools to access the weather and the news data. We'll then connect it to our schedule using Google Calendar. And then we'll instruct the agent to combine all of that information and send us a short summary of our day by email. Okay, so let's now actually build this from scratch. So once you sign up for n8n, you should see something like this. So let's go ahead and create a new workflow here, and this will load up a blank canvas. Now you've got two options. You can build with AI, which is pretty cool, but of course we're gonna build this manually, so we'll click on this button here. And this will open up the sidebar with all the different triggers that you can select from. So we can choose to trigger this manually. We can do it on a schedule, on a form submission, or we could even do it on a chat message. Now we are gonna run this on a schedule, but for now, we're actually gonna select the on chat message trigger. And the reason for this is because this will allow us to interact with the agent whilst we're building it. So if we just close out this for now, and as you can see, that's added our trigger. So the next step is to add the AI agent node. And to do this, you want to click on the plus sign button here and then go to AI and then select the AI agent, like so. And if we close out that, as you can see, that's already connected the two nodes together. But if we delete this connection, the way that you connect nodes together is by simply dragging and dropping these lines until they connect like so. And so now these are connected. Okay, so now we just need to add the different components to the AI agent node. And as you can see, we've got the different ports here. And so let's go ahead and start by adding the chat model. Now it's up to you what model you select here. We're going to choose OpenAI, but if you wanted to go with Google Gemini, then you can. The setup is pretty similar. So let's go ahead and select this one. Now you'll need to connect to your OpenAI account. So if you click on the drop down where it says credentials to connect with, as you can see, I've already connected mine a few times. But if you haven't done it yet, then you'll need to click on create new credential. And so here is where you connect up your API key. Now, n8n is really bloody helpful, and they actually include instructions on how to do this. So if we click on where it says Open Docs here, it'll actually take you to a page on OpenAI's website, and it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to connect your API key. And along the side here, they've got instructions for every built-in integration. So you'll need to head over to your API keys page on OpenAI, and if we click on this link here, it'll take you straight there. And here's where you'll find all of your API keys. Now, don't worry if you don't see anything. To create a new key, you simply want to click on the button here where it says Create New Secret Key. And then you can give it a name. So you can call it n8n, but we're going to call this YouTube. And then go ahead and click on Create Secret Key. And so that's now generated. So we'll go ahead and copy this. We'll head back into n8n, and you simply want to paste it into the field here, like so. And then click Save. And there we go, it's connected successfully. So one thing to mention is that this is separate from your ChatGPT account, so you'll need to add some credits to your billing. So just go ahead and add $5 or $10, and this will actually last you a very long time. Okay, so now that's connected, we can also select what model to use. So by default, we've got 4.1 mini, but we can select from a long list here. So you can use GPT-5 if you wanted to. And the way that you go about choosing what model to use just comes down to the use case of the agent and what you want the final output to look like. So for what we're doing, 4.1 mini is just fine. Okay, so now that we've added a chat model, we can actually talk to this agent. So let's go ahead and open the chat here, and we'll just say hi. And as you can see, it will show what nodes are being used, and it will highlight in green what nodes were used in that execution. And as you can see, we've got a response here. So it says, hello, how can I assist you today? Now, if we say to this agent, my name is Josh, and we'll see what it says. And there we go. So it's acknowledged that that's my name. So now if we say, what is my name? It should know because I just told it. However, as you can see, it has no idea. So what's going on there? Well, it's because this agent doesn't yet have memory. So it has no context of what's already been said in the conversation. So let's go ahead and give this agent some memory. So to do this, you want to click on the plus sign, and we'll go ahead and select simple memory. Now we have the option here to change the context window length. So what is that? The context window is how many past interactions the agent will remember. So by default, it's 5. So you can change this to like 10, 20, 30. It depends on how far back you want the agent to remember. We're going to leave it on 5. So let's go ahead and close out that. So now if we reset the logs, what we'll do is we'll say, my name is Josh, and we'll see what it says. So as you can see, it's used the simple memory node because it's been highlighted green in that execution. And if we now say, what is my name? It should remember this time. And there you go. It says your name is Josh. Okay, cool. And then in the logs here, it'll actually show you what nodes were used and in what order. So as you can see, it's used the simple memory node. So what we've got here is basically just ChatGPT. It's still pretty useless because we haven't given it access to any tools yet. So let's close out of this and let's start by adding the weather tool. So to do this, again, we'll click on the plus sign. Now n8n actually does have a built-in weather tool. It's called Open Weather Map. However, we're not going to use this one. What we are going to use is we are going to use the HTTP request tool. And as you'll now recognize, the request method is set to get because we're going to be requesting the information. And then below that is where we paste in the API URL. Okay, so this is the weather tool that we're going to be using. I'll leave a link to it in the resource. It's just a free weather API, but I think it does have a few more capabilities than the built-in one. I'm not entirely sure, but anyways, let's go ahead and click on this here. And here's where we select what information we want to request. So by default, we've got the temperature selected, but you can select as many of these as you want. We'll go ahead and select the precipitation probability because I think that one's important. And we'll just leave it on these two for now. And then we also want to set our location. So if you go to the search button here, as you can see, I've done this before. So I'm going to select London, and this will give you the latitude and longitude. So if we scroll down, as you see, there's even more settings to choose from. What we want is the API URL. So if we copy this and we'll head back into n8n, all you want to do is simply paste it into the URL field. And this node is now able to request the weather data using this link. And it really is that simple. So that's all we've got to do for that one. Okay, so let's actually just test this. So if we open up the chat here and we'll just reset the logs and we'll just ask it, what is the weather like in London today? And we'll see what it says. So it's used the correct tool here, and as you can see, we've got a response. So it says it's around 13 to 14 degrees with varying precipitation probabilities. So next we want to add the news tool, and so for this one, we're going to use what's called an RSS read. So we'll select this node here, and an RSS feed is just a simple link that a website uses to share its latest articles in a really structured and clean format. And so instead of scraping websites or copying text, the RSS read node can just fetch the latest headlines automatically. And so to do this, you simply paste in the RSS link for any news website that you want to follow. And I've already prepared this, so I'm just going to paste the link here. So this is the RSS feed link for the BBC website. And I'll just show you what this looks like in the browser. So I've just pasted that link in a new tab. So this is what an RSS feed looks like. And as you can see, there's a bunch of different headlines here that n8n can choose from. So you can use just one link, or you can get the AI model to pull headlines from multiple links. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So if we just delete this link here, and what we'll do is we'll get the AI to define the parameter. So you want to click on this button, and then we'll click on add a description, and we'll just paste in a bunch of different links here. So if we open this up, we're instructing the AI to use one of the following, and then we just got a bunch of different links here, so it can pull headlines from any one of them. Okay, so next we want to add our calendar. So if we go ahead and search for Google Calendar and select this tool here. So once again, you'll need to connect your credentials. So if you click on the drop down and click on create new credential, this one is a lot easier. It uses OAuth2, so you can simply just sign in with Google and then select the account that you want to use the calendar from. We then want to change the operation. So by default, it's set to create an event on our calendar, but we don't want that. We just want it to have a look at our calendar and see what events we've got on. So we're going to select get many. And then lastly, you just want to choose what calendar you want it to be connected to. So I'm going to select this one. And then all other settings we can leave the same. And then lastly, we'll add the Gmail tool. So let's search for Gmail. Select this one. And again, you just want to sign in with Google. For the operation, we want it to send the email, and by default, it's already set to send, which is what we want. Though we can leave that as it is. And then you just want to include the email that you want it to be sent to. So I'm going to type in my one here. For the subject line, we'll let the AI model decide this. For the email type, we'll set this to text. And then for the message, which is the body of the email, again, we'll let the AI decide this. Okay, and that's everything set up for this one. So as you can see, it's a little bit of a mess right now. So what we can do is we actually use this tool down here, which is going to tidy it up for us, which is a very helpful tool. So we'll just clean this up a little bit and we'll just reset the logs like so. Okay, so now that we've got all the tools connected, let's ask it a few more questions. So let's go ahead and say, what is the latest news? And we'll see what it says. And as you can see, it's just used the RSS read tool. And here's the response. So as you can see, it's pulled in 5 different headlines here and actually links to the full article. So let's ask it another question. We'll say, what is my schedule looking like today? And it should say that we've got a dental appointment at 9 o'clock. So let's head back into n8n. And there you go. So it says we've got a dental appointment from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And it's used the correct tool. Okay, so now that all the tools are connected and we've tested them to make sure that they are working correctly, let's now swap over the triggers to have this run on a schedule. So to do this, we'll just delete this trigger here, and then we'll go ahead and add a schedule trigger like so. And then we'll have this trigger at 6 a.m. every morning. So let's close out of that, and then we'll connect these up like so. And I'll just pull that one in. So before we run this, there's a couple of things that we need to do. Because we're no longer prompting this agent on a chat message, we still want to give it clear instructions on how and when to use the tools and what its purpose is. And so there's a couple of steps involved here. The first thing we want to do is we actually just want to rename the tools and add descriptions so that it becomes ultra clear to the agent what the purpose of each tool is. And then the second step is writing the system prompt, and we'll get onto that shortly. And I've just realized I haven't actually named this workflow yet, which is incredibly lazy. So I'm going to call this YouTube demo. And I'm just going to go through and rename these tools quickly. Okay, so I've just renamed the tools and I've added a couple descriptions just to help the agent understand what each node is used for. So I've just pasted in a short description here, which describes the tool. And then at the top here is where you can change the name. And I've done the same for the news tool as well. So I've added a short description here. And now the next step is to include the system prompt. And the system prompt tells the agent who it is, how it should behave, and what the final output should look like. And a good system prompt follows a really simple structure that makes the agent more predictable and easier to control. So the first part is the role. And so this tells the agent who it is. So for example, you are a personal assistant that writes a daily morning summary. Next is the goal. And so this is explaining to the agent what it's trying to achieve each time that it runs. And you also want to tell the agent when it's allowed to stop, otherwise it will continuously loop. Next, you want to list out the tools that the agent has access to. And this is why we renamed the tools, so the agent knows what tool to use at the right time. Next, we have the output format. And so this just explains to the agent what you want the final message or email to look like. And then lastly, we have constraints. And so these are just simple rules that keep the agent on track and prevent it from making unnecessary tool calls or any extra steps. And it's tempting to include as much information as possible in the system prompt, thinking that's going to help the agent, but oftentimes it actually has the opposite effect. So I always recommend following this structure and then making iterations based off the output that this gives you. Now, instead of writing this out from scratch, we're actually going to get ChatGPT to generate the system prompt for us. And I've actually created a meta prompt that generates the system prompt for us. So this will be in the resource. You can simply copy it and paste it into ChatGPT and then simply just fill in the placeholders and it'll produce a system prompt following that same structure that we just went over. So I'm going to copy this and paste it into ChatGPT. Okay, so I've just pasted that into ChatGPT and I filled in the placeholders, and feel free to pause and have a read through this just to get an idea of what the prompt should look like. And here is the response. So it's given us a very good system prompt to work with. It's listed out the role, the goals, we've listed out all the tools and when they're supposed to be used. It's got the output format and it's also listed out some constraints here as well. So I'm going to copy this and we'll head back into n8n. So if we click on the AI agent node, now it still thinks that we're connected to the chat trigger node. So we're going to click on this drop down here and we're going to select define below. Now this here is the field for the user prompt, which is separate from the system prompt, and we'll get onto that in just a second. So to add the system prompt, you want to go to where it says add options and then select system message, and then we can go ahead and paste that prompt in there like so. So now the agent is going to act in accordance with our instructions here. And like I say, you just want to test and iterate, and then you can change things around in here. Okay, and then for the user message, this is similar to how you would prompt it on a chat trigger. So just include a really simple instruction here. I'm just going to paste one in like so. And all we're saying is generate today's morning brief using the data provided. And that's all you need for the user message. Okay, so now let's go ahead and test this, and we'll go ahead and click on execute workflow. And as you can see, we've got an error. Now this was intentional. We have an error with our simple memory node. So if we click on this, as you can see, it still thinks that we're connected to the chat trigger node. However, because we're now running this on a schedule, we actually don't need the memory node at all. So what we can do, we can actually press the D key to deactivate the node. So as you can see underneath that, it now says deactivated. So if we go ahead and run the workflow, it should work this time. And as you can see, it's used all the tools here. And so it should now send the email, and it has. So we'll now head over to my inbox, and we should have received an email. And here it is. So it says, good morning, here's your brief for today. It's given us the weather and the top news headlines. And it's also listed out our dental appointment for 9 o'clock. Have a great day. So I think the system prompt has done a really good job here. I'm happy with this output. There's just one problem. It says that it was sent by n8n, and we don't want that. So let's head back over to n8n. And to fix this, you just want to click on the Gmail tool. And at the bottom here where it says add option, you want to select append n8n attribution, and then just deselect this like so. And so now when we execute the workflow, when it sends the email this time, it should no longer have that n8n attribution. Okay, so that's just finished. So let's go to my inbox again, and here's the new email. So let's click on this. And as you can see, it no longer says that it was sent by n8n. And if you weren't happy with the output here, you would simply go into the system prompt and you would just tweak it until you got the output that you wanted. Okay, so you now understand what agents are, how they make decisions, and how to build one inside of n8n without writing any code. You now have the foundations for building any AI agent that you want. And the best way to learn is to sign up for n8n and just start building. You'll learn more by building these agents yourself and just getting comfortable with the platform. Let me know in the comments what you want to see me build next. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.